Hollow Knight is a game that I've always heard great things about. Personally, I don't have a lot of experience with Metroidvanias, so it was one that, up until recently, I'd never gotten around to trying. People seem to absolutely love this game, and I wanted to understand why. I know I'm a bit late to the party, but hey, I still managed to play it before Silksong came out, so that's good enough for me. Let's see what all the fuss is about. Is Hollow Knight worth the hype? Hollow Knight is a primarily non-linear experience that involves you exploring a vast world and unlocking power-ups that allow you to access more and more different areas. The majority of the game takes place beneath the surface as you wander through caves, long-lost civilizations, and so much more. Traversing through all of these areas evokes a sense of curiosity, and there's a real sense of immersion. This is bolstered by the subdued colour palettes of the various areas that you venture through and the subtle music in the background. You just feel the urge to go deeper and deeper underground and see what secrets this world holds. As you do this, searching every nook and cranny, you see how richly embellished this world is with secrets, upgrades, and collectibles. You'll find spell-based attacks, health and magic capacity extenders, items, captured grubs, new abilities like a double jump, a dash, and so much more. It's incredibly easy to stray off the beaten path and get completely lost in the world. The game never outright forces you down a specific route, so you have free reign to go in whichever direction you please. When you're deep underground exploring these seemingly endless caverns though, it does feel quite lonely since, for the most part, you're alone on this journey, defending yourself against enemy after enemy. Every now and then you'll come back to Dirtmouth, a small, quiet, sparsely populated town above the surface. Coming back here feels like a nice respite. After being underground for so long, sometimes it can get a bit claustrophobic, so returning to the surface is a nice way to clear your head. It's said that a lot of travellers used to visit Dirtmouth, but over time it's gotten quieter and quieter, the only inhabitants when you get there being an old, wistful bug and a shopkeeper. However, on your journey you'll come across quite a few characters beneath the surface. A cartographer who plans to map out the entirety of the underground and will sell you his maps, travelling merchants, and various other bugs who found themselves lost on their travels. These characters will then return to Dirtmouth, leading to the near-abandoned town slowly becoming more and more populated, providing a real sense of progression and community. There are a few other recurring characters you'll bump into along the way, Hornet, Quirrell, Zote, and so on. One of my personal favourites is the Last Stag, who essentially acts as your fast travel or personal taxi, taking you from station to station. He's an old, weary bug, and the last of his kind, but despite his gruff exterior, he's actually a sweet and caring dude and is quite protective of you. Even though he's getting older and he feels his legs getting tired, he loves doing this job and strives to continue as long as he can. He's one of the few characters in this game who genuinely feels like a friend, a companion, someone who's actually looking out for you. There's a very cool moment with him when you unlock all of the stations, but I won't say too much so as not to spoil what happens. At one point in the game, you'll unlock something called a Dream Nail, and when you strike a character with this weapon, it lets you see their inner thoughts. This adds further depth to their characters, expanding their personality beyond what you see from merely speaking to them. Talking to these characters is absolutely worth going out of your way to do, since Hollow Knight starts off very ambiguously. The story is largely a mystery when you begin your journey. The main motivation for your quest is the fact that some sort of infection has affected almost the entire population of bugs, causing them to lose their autonomy and attack anybody without discretion. Your goal is to find and ideally destroy the source of this infection. However, you don't really know a lot about who you are, what your true purpose is, or the backstory behind all of these different locations that you find yourself venturing through. It's only by playing the game and speaking to the different characters that you very slowly begin to build a picture of what's going on. Every interaction that you have will give you a small piece of information, and I honestly love this more abstract method of storytelling. It leaves a lot of the plot to your own imagination, gives you a chance to figure out what's happening without directly telling you. Now, Hollow Knight is not a game for the faint of heart. It is full of challenging platforming sections and brutal enemies that will absolutely decimate you over and over again. You will die a lot, and when this does inevitably happen, you drop all of your money, or geo, and return back to the last bench that you sat at. Thankfully, there is a way to get your money back though. If you return back to the area that you died, you'll find a shade, essentially your ghost, which, when killed, gives everything that you lost back. If you happen to be particularly unfortunate and get killed on the way back to your shade though, then you lose everything. It absolutely sucks when that happens, but it really humbles you and stops you from getting too comfortable. Fending off hordes of enemies and fighting massive bosses is a big focus of this game though, so for it to work, the combat would have to be exceptional. Luckily, that is most definitely the case in Hollow Knight. The main weapon that you have at your disposal is a simple nail, basically a small short-range sword. But it's with this simple nail that you're able to take down even the strongest of foes. Over the course of this game, you'll be able to upgrade your nail at the blacksmiths using a rare collectible called Pale Ore. You'll also encounter nail masters who'll teach you special techniques which help you to do more damage. Your nail isn't the only tool at your disposal, however. What is an equally big part of the combat system is your soul meter. In my opinion, this is one of the coolest things about this game. The soul meter is a gauge that fills up when you attack enemies or specific statues in the overworld. With the soul that you gather, there are a number of things that you can do. The main function is that it allows you to heal, which is absolutely crucial in this game. The trade-off is that recovering health takes a few seconds, leaving you completely exposed and vulnerable to attack. This means that you have to think carefully about when it's safe to do this. Sure, you'll probably need to get some health back in the middle of a boss fight, but you need to do it at a time when there's a lull in their attack pattern. Try to heal at the wrong time and you'll only make the problem worse. Now, healing is great and all, but Soul can also be used to cast a number of different spells. Projectile blasts, ground pounds, and other such attacks. These are pretty versatile and do quite a bit more damage than your normal attacks, so throughout each battle that you take part in, you need to constantly think on your feet about how best to use your soul. Do you use your spells to maximize damage output, or do you prioritize healing? What adds to the complexity of the game's combat is the charm system. Charms are items that you can equip to give yourself power-ups and bonuses. You can only equip a certain number of them at one time as you have a limited number of charm notches. Different charms will take up a different number of slots, with more powerful, versatile ones typically taking up more. There's a charm that restores your soul when you take damage, one that gives you a shell that protects you when you're healing, and one that turns your dash, primarily a mobility tool, into a damaging move, just to name a few. You can find more charm notches throughout the world, allowing you to equip more and more of them and experiment with different combinations. You'll often need to chop and change your charms depending on the situation and figure out what works best. This is particularly apparent when it comes to the game's boss fights. These are probably one of my favourite things about Hollow Knight. Each boss is a meticulously crafted fight, designed to make you struggle, lose, get frustrated, but subsequently learn from your mistakes and figure out their attack patterns. To me, one of the best examples of this is the game's first boss, the False Knight. When you encounter this guy for the first time, you will feel intimidated. He's this giant, hulking bug wielding a huge mace, and when you first fight him, he will probably decimate you with his big, heavy swings. Given that you only have a puny little nail as a weapon, this guy might seem completely impossible to beat at first. However, when you go back to fight him again, you'll learn how to dodge his attacks. You'll figure out that he only has a small pool of moves, and that his once brutal attack pattern is actually very predictable. As the battle goes on, the False Knight realizes that the tables have turned. It's not you who's on the back foot, but him. His attack patterns grow more and more frantic, more and more desperate. You can even hear it in his panicked voice. When you eventually defeat him, you feel powerful for taking down this once terrifying foe with ease. And it's here that you see who the False Knight truly is. A simple maggot in the shell of what used to be a noble knight. A weakling hiding behind a powerful mask. Very much a metaphor for how the fight itself goes. Another personal favourite of mine is Nosk, the main reason being that the build up to it is super unique. As you're walking through a dangerous area deep underground, fittingly known as Deep Nest, you'll find a hidden room tucked away in a corner. Walk around this room and you'll find a secret passageway within it. There are secrets within secrets within secrets, and it creates a sense of curiosity, but equally worry too. Fear as to what could possibly be hidden this deep into the world. Eventually, you'll find something peculiar. Right beneath you is what appears to be a friend. Someone or something that looks perfectly identical to you. If you keep chasing it, you'll see it again and again, seeing this thing that's just out of reach. This continues until you enter a narrow corridor. You take one step and then all of a sudden, a barrier appears behind you, blocking your escape. This is when you realize that you've made a big mistake. Trapped and with no other option, you advance further until you're face to face with your doppelganger. And as you might have figured out by the ominous nature of the build-up, it's revealed that this imposter was a malicious spider luring you into its lair. Hollow Knight isn't a scary game per se, but man, the lead up to this fight does feel like something out of a horror movie, and I think that is awesome. Most of these fights were very challenging and took me multiple tries to beat. There were a couple of exceptions though, like the time I stumbled across the Soul Sanctum. In this area of the map, you're bombarded with spellcasting bugs that use their magic to hit you with long-range attacks. Now, the mini-boss for this area, the Soul Warrior, absolutely destroyed me. He took me a ton of attempts to beat, since the particular combination of attacks he used was really tricky to dodge. But then, when I beat him and got to the real boss, the Soul Master, I couldn't have been more prepared. Losing to the mini-boss so many times had trained me for what was to come, as the main boss used a very similar set of attacks to him. And to my own amazement, I was able to best the Soul Master on my first go. To me, this highlights the idea that the game does a fantastic job of teaching you and forcing you to adapt. Using the knowledge that you've acquired to overcome your foes just feels so incredibly rewarding. All of this fighting and combat culminates in the Colosseum of the Fools, an arena consisting of 3 challenges for only the bravest of warriors. These are essentially battles consisting of waves and waves of enemies that you have to fight your way through. The first 2 aren't too bad, but it's the final challenge, the Trial of the Fool, that will put you through the ringer. It is an absolutely brutal gauntlet of some of the toughest enemies in this game, combined with precariously placed platforms on top of spikes. There's even one point where the floor beneath you completely disappears and you have to stay alive by clinging to the walls the whole time while flying enemies are constantly chipping away at your health. This specific part was always a run-ender for me. For the longest time, it walled me completely and I could not get past it to save my life. The Trial of the Fool is an immensely difficult challenge, and it's one that can take hours of dedication to overcome. Despite all the hardships it put me through, Hollow Knight was a thoroughly enjoyable experience from start to finish. Though undeniably a difficult game, it compelled me to continue with its rich world and wonderfully told story. I just couldn't help but feel completely immersed by it. Very few games are able to hook me in and keep me playing every day, but Hollow Knight did precisely that. Every boss I came across felt like an insurmountable challenge at first, but that only spurred me on to keep trying and eventually beat them. Every room was packed full of secrets, and it felt like there was something hidden in almost every corner. Upgrades were plentiful and satisfying, with the initial moveset feeling simple and rudimentary, but little by little becoming something much greater. Everything about this game had me absolutely hooked, and I can now confidently say that Hollow Knight is indeed worth the hype. I'm feeling super pumped for when Silksong comes out. It seems really promising from what we've seen so far, but we might be waiting a while for that to happen.